Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all our listeners wherever you are in the world. My name's Janet O'Keefe and I am the SEN Revolution Host. I'm speaking to you today from Cambridgeshire in the UK, and I'm just so excited because we are organising a summit about the SEN revolution, and so I thought that today would be a great opportunity for me to talk to you a little bit about my vision and how it's come about and where we're going with our SEN community, and how we can really improve and increase our connection and the amount of communication that we can have, and how I can serve you by bringing together experts from across the world who can share with you some really fantastic hints and tips for ways to support young people with any form of special educational need. And I'm sure that you'll remember from last week that this stems partly from my background as a speech and language therapist, and partly from my background as a parent of a child with special educational needs. Our youngest son is a kinship adoption, and he was born with something called hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which means that he was born with only half a functioning heart. He only has two chambers. The chambers that pump the blood to the lungs and back were working fine, but the other two chambers that then pump around the rest of the body just didn't grow, didn't form. So the magical doctors had to, as literally as soon as he was born, replumb his heart so that it originally became just one pump that pumped round his body, and it just got to his lungs and back just by blood pressure alone. So you can imagine when we first met this little chap that he was pretty blue in colour, and even as he grew and developed, everything was an effort. So he didn't cry in the same way that other babies cry. He wasn't particularly demanding as a small baby because he just didn't have the energy to really. But a baby with this type of condition 20 years ago, these babies just died, and it's only with the miracle of modern science that we can give these babies a life and we can give them a future. But our little lad's life and future was compromised even further by the fact that he needed to be in care, and he was placed in a children's home, and he was on his own, just with 16 different carers for 73 weeks, and they were on 24-hour shifts. So they changed shift at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when he had his afternoon nap. So you can imagine that when he finally got to come and live with us when he was 20 months old, this little baby was absolutely terrified of going to sleep, because his experience was his world ended every time he went to sleep, and his world changed every time he went to sleep. And that if he did form any sort of attachment to a particular carer, he would wake up and they weren't there and somebody else was. And even though all the carers that we met were individually and personally absolutely lovely people, and they were doing their job of caring for him as best they possibly could, we all do things differently. We all, just thinking about meal times, for example, some of us, when we're feeding a baby, may have them sitting on our knee. Once they can sit up, others of us will put babies in a high chair or something where they're facing us. Other people might have little set phrases. Others might involve the child in the preparation of their food. There are all sorts of cues in the environment to do with smells, to do with sights, to do with what comes on the radio or what the person says or what the person sings, that cues the baby that food is on its way. But if each day those cues are different, there's nothing wrong with the cues on their own, but if every day they're different, you actually grow up in a panic thinking that your food is not coming, and that you don't know when it's going to come, and that people are only around you because they have to be around you, not because they love you and care for you. And that really does mess up with your emotional development and your ability to problem solve. So even though our lad has lived with us now for over 11 years and he's now 13, he still is in a heightened state of anxiety most of the time. And that's particularly comes to the fore when there is a change of who's in the home. We have 3 older sons, and our eldest has recently left home, although he has been at university for the last 4 years and obviously only home in the holidays. But, our youngest now knows that he isn't living with us all the time anymore. And so that, has worried him really, because it's a big change in his life. Our next son has got 1 more year at school, and then he's preparing to go to university. So he's spending some weekends this term going and looking at universities with my husband. And, this last weekend in particular, our youngest child had lots of nightmares, basically because his dad and 2 of his brothers weren't here. So even though he loves me and our other son very much and knows that we're here to look after him and care for him, he's in a panic just because, things are a little bit different. You transfer him, therefore, into a school situation, and if his teacher's not there because she's not well or on a course, or one of his classmates isn't there because, they're not well or got an appointment, or whatever the reason might be, or what lesson they thought they were going to have is now not going to be the same lesson, or it's going to have a different teacher, he has a really acute anxiety reaction to that. And so, both, as I say, with my professional hat and with my parent hat, I know just how hard it is to get other people to understand those difficulties and to understand the complexity and the enormity. And particularly when, they might only be with your child in school for one particular subject, and they don't see them the rest of the time in school, and they certainly don't know how they are at home, and they haven't got in their head when they're teaching a lesson all that background history, even that little snippet that I just shared with you, and how that, interrelates to what's happening, past, present and future in all contexts and settings of home, school and in the community. You can see that these triggers that trigger his emotional state just happen all the time without people realizing that that's exactly what they're doing, and that they may have some contribution to that, and therefore may have some control over helping to support him, either by minimizing those triggers, or by preparing him for those triggers, or by dealing with them when they do occur. So, it appears to me that it doesn't matter how many times I share that information with the same people, to actually get them to integrate it and have it in their mind all day, every day when they're actually teaching him or working with him, seems to be, really, really difficult. So, my idea for the SEN Revolution is to have some way of bringing together parents and professionals who have similar and different experiences of living and working with young people of any age who have a special educational need or have had some sort of special need diagnosis at any point, to actually come together to share, so that we can, as parents, get across to the professionals the significance, and that we're not just fussy parents, and we're not just difficult parents, and we're not just people who keep banging on. It's because we really care about our children, and we really care about their future and their development. And, it doesn't matter how much we try and keep the consistency and the love and the care there for them. As soon as they walk out of our front door and into a different situation, all of that falls by the wayside unless we can work together collaboratively with others so that they can continue to provide that support for the young people in other settings. I think it also is just so important that as a professional, we, have our professional background and training. And of course, that's important in helping us to evaluate and to diagnose, assess, report, and write programs for, and indeed work with young people and teach teachers and other support staff and parents on what to do. But actually, we need to put that to one side and truly, truly understand and believe that parents are the best people in the lives of their young people, who actually know them on every level, on an emotional level, as well as on their behaviour and their academic, learning. And that, actually there's a huge bit missing from our information. There's a huge bit missing from our assessments unless we include parents as equal partners in every step of the therapeutic or teaching journey for that young person. And also remember that, a parent's commitment to their child, generally speaking, is lifelong. It's not just for the school period, or indeed for the school academic year, which is as far as many people seem to think, really. And also that for our experiences, there is a big gap in communication between health education and social care. So they're not joined up in the way that they should be. They're not communicating with each other in the way that they should and could be. And none of them are truly, truly involving the parents. And I think in the UK, there is a big move at the moment, which I know is lagging behind, certainly Australia and Canada, in terms of including parents in the team around the young person. But even though we've now got legislation and we've got guidelines that say that the parent and the young person need to be at the centre of thinking, the centre of planning, it at the moment feels like it's just lip service. It feels like that parents and even the children are invited to meetings where they are then told what's going to happen, rather than being, having a blank sheet of paper and working together, properly and having the beginning. And I think that, often that's largely because of the finances and the funding, and the fact that in the UK, as in many parts of the world, there is an economic crisis, which means that budgets are being cut for statutory services. So there are less local authority officers and more meetings and more pieces of sort of tasks on their list, of pieces of work that they have to do in a day. And so, another situation that's arisen for us in the last week or longer is over travel and transport for our son. I've told you about his anxiety levels and changes and what have you. So we decided with the local authority, when he went to his special school, that we would transport him. We would take him in our car. And for that, the local authority would give us a mileage allowance, because they didn't have to provide a taxi or a bus or anything along those lines, even if there was one, because we know that we're the only family from our area that travels for an hour to get their child to a school in a different area. And although we're hoping to move closer soon, so that for all of our sakes we have a shorter journey, as I say, there is no option for our son to do public transport, even if he were able to, which he isn't. He hasn't changed. His needs haven't changed. He hasn't changed the school that he attends. We haven't moved house. We haven't changed bank account. However, the local authority have decided to change their system. And it was supposed to go to a panel, we understood, in July. And to date, we have no evidence that it's actually been to a panel that will reapprove our mileage allowance. So basically, since the beginning of September, we've been taking our child to school every day, but we've received no mileage allowance. We're now nearly half term, 6 weeks later. And so the only thing that changed was the local authority system. We still haven't managed to find the person who's supposed to sign the piece of paper who will actually rectify that situation. And I really don't think that the bureaucrats at the local authority understand at all the huge impact that that has financially on a family, but it also impacts on how you feel valued. Because, you know, I think that again, the big thing that I've become really aware of in you know, the last few years of living and working with many families is that the effect on self-esteem and the effect on you know, your well-being as a parent, as an adult, is hugely affected by the way that these local authority officers and any of the professionals that you come into contact with treat you. And you know, so I, you know, the you know, the concept of my one-day conferences, the concepts that I've included in the book have all come to fruition now in me thinking, actually, you know, it's really good identifying these needs and, you know, understanding what the 10 things are that parents tell me make the most positive difference to the lives of their children and to the lives of themselves and their family. But actually, we need to get this message out, and we need to get this message out more and to more people. And I know that although the system will be different in each country, that actually the issues that families have are exactly the same. And so my vision is to create a global community called the SEN Revolution. And it's not just about needing to fight the local authorities to get your travel allowance or whatever it might be, although that is sometimes needed. It's actually about turning SEN on its head and getting people to really, truly understand and work together and put the young people and their families at the centre of any services or therapies or teaching or whatever it might be. And in order to enable that to happen, those of us who are parents or who have children with special needs need to start with ourselves, because, as I say, the erosion on our self-esteem and confidence over the years of being or feeling judged in negative ways often, and not supported and you know, shown the love that it would be amazing for us all to feel. You know, when we are giving so much to our children in time and emotional and practical commitment, and again, you know, thinking about, you know, the forms that we have to fill in. I have so many more forms for our youngest son than I've ever had for my other 3 children put together. I've got 15 ring binders full of paper. You know, whereas my other children have a little folder in, you know, in a filing cabinet which they can take with them. And I think that, you know, by putting together some content so that the first week of every month, I can pull together some information and experts who can help with emotional well-being and all those strategies that can actually really help those of us who are parents or professionals working in this field to improve our own emotional resilience, so that we can then be role models for our children would, is an amazing vision and an amazing aim to have. And then the second week of every month, I'm going to bring together experts and information about physical well-being. So health and nutrition and sleep and exercise and all of those things that actually can really support us. Because if you're not getting enough sleep as a parent or as a child, if you're not getting enough sleep or eating good quality food, and you're not drinking enough water throughout the day, and you're not getting out in nature and in the fresh air every day, then actually all these people coming and assessing your child or your family circumstances and talking to you and saying you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other, you're not able to take it on board. So it doesn't matter how fabulous the amazing advice is, if your own well-being is such that you actually can't function, then you're not going to be able to do what you need to do. And my view very much is that, if we're going to change the world here, if we're going to change the culture here and get the world to change its view on how we value people with special needs and their families, then we need to get the families to a place where they are feeling not just resilient, but they are feeling completely full up on an emotional and a physical level, so that they are healthy and vibrant and full of energy, that they can not only give to the caring of their family, but also they can actually have a life of their own. Gosh, let's imagine that for a moment, and share that with other people in the world, so that they can see how much, all of us are here for a reason. All of us are here with gifts. All of us are here with things that we need to teach other people, as well as lessons that we each need to learn. And just because you have a child with special needs, or indeed you are somebody who was born with different uniqueness, then you're no less valuable and you have no less contribution to make to that growing and learning and developing in the world. But at the moment, I think that our community is completely marginalized. It's completely sidelined because, we're not a very big number, and we're particularly not going to vote in large numbers. And therefore, the powers that be in, the systems of government and education that we currently have, and indeed even social care and healthcare, seem to be dominated by these systems that have more to do with money and accountancy than they do with care and compassion. And so, my vision is, as I say, to provide that support and that connection and that communication and that information to families about emotional well-being, physical well-being. And then hopefully we're all in a place where we can listen to these amazing examples of excellence, where we can listen to these inspirational teachers and therapists who can actually give us the additional specialist programs and therapies that we can then use at home, and also get integrated into our children's education and other settings, that will actually make the difference and enable them to reach their potential, whatever that potential is. And then the fourth week of every month, we're wanting to bring our legal colleagues in, all those lovely solicitors, advocates, barristers, support groups, charities, who do such sterling work on our behalf currently in order to prepare the ground and fight the corner in tribunals and court to get the support that is in legislation put actually and realistically into place. Because we do need to keep up to date with those systems and what we can do and how we can do what we can to use the systems to get that support in place and integrated. But as I say, unless we are emotionally resilient, physically well, know what an example of excellence looks like, know what it is our child needs, then actually we can't construct our arguments and our negotiations well enough to be able to actually argue our corner and achieve what our children need us to achieve, to actually take their place in the world. So basically that's my vision, to have a membership community that's open globally to anybody who wants to learn those strategies in those 4 areas, and can also come together and communicate with each other via online forums or groups, so that we can support each other physically and practically. The only proviso is that it has to be positive solutions, where, you know, there are plenty of other places where you can go to offload, and it's important that you do that. But it isn't a place to come and moan. It isn't a place to come and just tell us about all the dreadful things that are happening. We truly, truly understand those. We're coming together here to actually support each other in changing the culture, changing the way that we are, changing our reaction to the input that comes at us at the moment from those often statutory authorities. And so, you know, to finish today, I'm basically going to say, in order to launch this amazing online community, I'm bringing together next week to record a free summit. 18 different people, some are professionals, some are parents, some are young people themselves, to share their experience and their expertise. And each one of those recordings is just going to be 20 minutes. The first 5 minutes, the person is going to introduce themselves and tell us about their background, tell us where they come from in the world. And I've got speakers from Canada and America, and I'm hoping to get someone from Romania and Australia as well. So again, anybody listening to this broadcast, if you are burning to be able to share with us your experience and expertise, then don't hesitate to get in touch. And I'm then going to ask the people, you know, how they feel they fit with this mission and this vision, and how they feel they fit with the one day events that we're organising throughout the UK over the next year, and how they fit with the global online community, and how they're already linked in, and how they're already working with us, or how they want to be able to do that in the future. And then I'm going to ask each one of them for one thing that they know will make a positive difference. So I've got some fantastic people who are going to be talking to us about behavior, other people talking to us about nutrition, some talking to us about integrating therapy and teaching in schools, how to make sure that the fabric of the building that your child is educated in is safe and secure, and has all the right, not just sort of physical access, but also we're thinking about heating, lighting, acoustics for the young people who might have a hearing impairment. And, you know, yeah, so I'm just really, really, really excited, Marina, to be recording this week, and then, you know, letting it out into the world, and letting it out so that our global community can find us, so that they can, hear what it is that we do, who we are, why we do what we do, and whether what we're offering is going to be helpful and beneficial and, you know, transformational to them in their support of their young people. It's just incredibly excited. Next Monday, I will be broadcasting, as I mentioned earlier, from Romania. I go to Romania a couple of times a year at the moment to work with a group of young people there who really are the pioneers. They are the first visible disabled adults in their communities. It's up in Transylvania, up in the mountainous area of Romania. And, historically, there hasn't been any services. Historically, there haven't been very much information, and just seeing people with any sort of disability out and about in normal life in the community, in the town, shopping, etc., just rarely happens. And my role in going and spending time with this community, which is run by the Jonas Trust, is to help with their eating and drinking and nutrition on this occasion, and on other occasions it's to do with their communication and particularly computer aided technology to help with their communication. But as I say, on this occasion, you know, it's very much my view that unless people are getting adequate nutrition, they are healthy and well and thriving, it's going to be incredibly hard for them to actually take on board any of the other teaching that we have. So that's why we need to start with the basic needs. And on other occasions, I've gone with some lovely teachers from Germany, and indeed there are physiotherapists and occupational therapists that go out to this community too, as well as their absolutely inspirational parents. Who, you know, greet us every time and are just so grateful for any of this information, because what I'm sharing with you via this radio show is just so new to so many parts of the world, and I'm totally appreciative of that. We complain sometimes about the services that we have in the UK, and quite rightly so, because they need to be improved. But actually, you know, in many countries in the world, they haven't even got started yet on any of these services. But it's really interesting, because in some ways they're at an advantage because of that, because at least they're not having to dismantle the system in the way that we may be in you know, so-called more developed countries, because we can actually start from scratch and build it up the right way and get this support for the whole family in place right from the word go, rather than, say, having to try and get it inserted in at a much later date. So, Marina, you've been listening to all of that. Have you got any questions that might help to clarify what I've been talking about today in terms of the summit and the community?
Wow, Janet, I was listening and thinking that you are truly the rainbow in somebody else's cloud.
Wow.
And there are so many people out there who, they look different, they sound different, and maybe even their family calls them different names than they think of themselves. And maybe we should learn the language of calling people by their rightful name and giving them the chance to bring into the world their own talent, their own rainbow.
Yeah.
And I have a competition. I have a very nice quote by a famous writer, and if any of our listeners will know who the writer is, then they'll have a ticket, a VIP ticket, to the upcoming red carpet event, the Authors Award ceremony, and they'll have the chance to meet you in person, because you are going to launch your latest book at the Authors Award ceremony in December 21st this year in London. So the quote is, kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. So if you know the answer, please come back to us, connect with Janet or myself, and we are going to make sure we will send you the ticket for the Authors Award ceremony, where Janet is going to launch her latest book. From both of us, until next time, is goodbye.
Bye-bye.